we're going to run through the things that you'll be using SimpleQI for, and hopefully be able to answer any questions that you have at the end. It typically takes about 40 minutes to run through the training, and we like to leave some time at the end for the questions. So with that, I'll just kick it off and jump right in. So as Linda had mentioned, most of you probably already received the invitation to join SimpleQI. And if you did, just click on the link. It'll bring you to the create an account page. It's a pretty quick thing to do. If you're already registered with SimpleQI, you'll automatically be added to the team, and you won't have to obviously re-register. But for most of you, you probably aren't registered, so you'll arrive at this page, first name, last name. The email address will be pre-filled out, and it's important to leave that as it is because that's what's attached to the role that you've been assigned in the project. If you do want a different email address as your login, you can request that you get a new invitation using the new email address. If you change this email address and register with a new one, the original role assignment won't be attached to you. So it's important to make sure that those stay connected. Then you enter the password, which requires some specifics down here, just for security reasons in terms of how long it has to be and special characters and such. And then you'll have to go ahead and check this off and say that you've read the terms of use and privacy policy, and then go ahead and click register. If that's all successful, you'll automatically be brought directly into the project. Okay. And today I'll be using I just set up a training team within the project so that we can actually look at things that are actually set up in the real project to make it more familiar.
Okay.
But I will also be I'll also be using a demonstration project for things if I'm going to be actually entering any information. I don't want to enter real information into your real project because it'll just be junk training information. So I'll be switching back and forth between these two. Okay. So the first thing I would do is if to tell you if you want to invite other people to your team, you're able to do that. There's really no limit on how many people you can invite in. So what you do is in your team homepage, we go to the people section, and you can see there's no one on this team yet. On your team, you'd obviously see yourself to start with, but what you do is say add member and enter their email address and select which role you'd like to give them. So a team administrator and a key contact pretty much can do everything on the team. Team contributor can do things like data entry, add documents, run PDSAs and such, but they cannot add people to the team. And then if you wanted to invite somebody in to have view-only access, you could invite them either as a guest or a viewer. And that's really good for if you wanted to invite somebody from your organization, maybe it's an executive or a manager who's not directly involved in the project, but you want to give them access to what you're seeing, you can invite them using that role. If you're not sure about which role, you can just click here. Let's see. It's proceed for some reason. Oh, okay, that link needs to be secure. We'll go ahead and fix that. But what this will show you is a document with the different roles. If you scroll down, you can see the team member roles, and this describes exactly what each one can do within the system. Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. So when you invite somebody who is not a member yet, what it'll do is add them to the a pending list, and then they'll get that email just like you did. They'll click on it, they'll register, and then they'll be allowed into the project. Okay, so pretty straightforward. So let me give you a quick tour of the overall layout of this. So this is your team homepage. This is where you'll be using SimpleQI from. Down the left-hand side are all the main sections. On the right-hand side it's surfacing information from different areas that you'll find on the left. So for instance, the calendar is the upcoming events. Newest resources will be the documents that you can add to your team section. Below that are the team discussions, which I'll be going over in more detail. Over here is a quick links section where you can get to things that you commonly want to come in and use. Most active standard changes are things that when people start running PDSAs, this list will get populated with the changes that people are working on, just to kind of keep you abreast as to what people are focused on. Below that will be the newest project resources. So any documents and links that are being shared by project staff will appear here. And then below that are any of the recent project discussions, which it looks like there's one here from a couple weeks ago. Okay. Up in the right-hand corner here is a help section, which has several videos which describe common tasks that you'll be doing within SimpleQI. And they range from 2 minutes to some of the longer ones are about 5 minutes long, but they are very task focused. And you'll see those linked from different places within SimpleQI. So if the page has a video, you'll see a little video camera icon, which I'll show you when we see one. And then that way you can just jump in and refresh your memory as to how to do something. Okay. So the first thing I want to point out here on the home page is the project aim. So this says default because this has not been edited from the one that was set up at the project level. But if you did want to customize this or add some additional detail, you could just click on the 3 dots and say customize. You can leave this top section alone if you would like, and you can add your details in the detail section below. And then there's some helpful guidance over here as to what a good aim should have. You'll see this type of guidance throughout the system, just trying to be helpful in helping people who may not have as much experience with quality improvement than others. Okay, you'd make any changes you want, click update, and then those changes will be reflected on your homepage. Okay. Below this is the upcoming events. So this will show any events that are happening in the future. You can hover over this to see what this is all about. If you click on it, you can get more information. If there was a Zoom link or a team link, you would see that there as well. It just really tries to bring everything together about that one event in one place. Okay. We can go in and view the calendar if you wanted to view it in sort of a calendar format. You can also add your own events. If you wanted to add a team event that you were having, you could add that in here. I recommend switching to the week view to do that. It makes it a little bit easier. And if you've used Outlook Online or Google Calendar, it's very, very similar to that. All you have to do is select the time period that you want to add the meeting to, click Add Team Event, give it a title, select the type of meeting you want. So online, in person. You can also set due dates and milestones for yourself if you wanted to. And then you could paste in here maybe the agenda or a Teams link or a Zoom link, whatever online tool that you use for your meetings. And then that'll show up in your calendar for your team. If you were interested in subscribing to the calendar, so let's say you wanted to add a special calendar to your Outlook or Google Calendar, you can just click subscribe. And what this did was it copied the link required to subscribe to the calendar. If you're familiar with subscribing to online calendars at all, it's pretty straightforward. If not, depending on which tool you're using, the help file or online help will be able to tell you exactly how to subscribe to it. But that did copy it to the clipboard. Just show you what that actually looks like here. Sorry, 1 second. So it's basically a link to the calendar, which is what your calendar application will be looking for. Your calendar application will then go ahead and poll for changes, so you won't have to come in and look for different meetings and things like that. They'll just show up on that calendar. Okay, so that's a handy feature. I'll just go back to the home page. The next thing I want to show you is resources. So if you have documents that you want to add to your site, you can do that directly here. And you can access both your team resources as well as any project resources. It doesn't look like any project resources have been added just yet. But if you have permission on your team to add documents, you'll see this drag files here to upload. You'll also see these buttons. This button here allows you to add one file at a time. This one lets you add a link. So if I wanted to add a link, say test resource, and we'll say .com. And then that shows up in your resources section with a little link icon next to it. If I wanted to upload some documents, let's say I had several documents I wanted to upload for a meeting, I could just select them here, drag them, drop them right there. So now we have our documents in there. You can also add folders. So we'll add a folder here called meetings. And if I wanted to put some documents in there, I could do that. If I wanted to move these documents into that folder, what I could do is use the little move feature right here and just select meetings to move those in like that. Okay. You can also delete things. Let's say I didn't want to upload this. I can just go ahead and delete it. And if I wanted to share a document, I could do that as well. There's a little share icon here. This will copy a share link to the clipboard. And this is good if you wanted to paste it in an email. You could just paste it directly in the email. And if somebody clicked on that, it would be brought directly to the resource within your team site. Okay. Great. So let's go back to the team homepage and discussions. So let's say you wanted to either have a discussion with your team or some other team. You could go to their team homepage and post a question on their homepage. So this is the team discussions for your team. Let's say you went to somebody else's and you wanted to ask them a general question. You could say add comment on the right-hand side here. Say put question. Maybe you heard them mention something in a webinar and you wanted to ask them a follow-up question. You just go to them and ask that question. Add. So then that shows up in their discussions. If I go back to the team homepage, you'll see it here. Everyone on that team will receive a notification that there's a new discussion post, and then they can click on the link in the email to go in and respond to that question. Okay. So you can see as new ones are added, they'll appear on the homepage, so you don't have to go digging for those. The same thing for the project discussions as well. So the project staff may be posting things here. You can come in and quickly respond and add your opinion or response to that discussion as well. Okay. And you'll see the discussions in various places throughout the site. So there's team discussions, there's project discussions, there's also discussions within the driver diagram. So if you're working on a topic that others are working on, you can engage in a conversation specifically about that change concept which I'll show you once we get into the driver diagram. Okay. So we'll go right in and take a look at the driver diagram, actually, which has not been set up yet. So I'm assuming there is going to be a driver diagram for the newborn nutrition project. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'll show in the demo project what the driver diagram looks like, and this will actually be a little bit better because it'll be populated with PDSAs. So if I go over to the demo project and I click on drivers, you'll see the driver diagram where we have primary drivers, we have secondary drivers, and then we have the change concepts. A couple of things I want to point out on this driver diagram is there are numbers, and the numbers indicate how many teams have activity within these different areas. So for instance, there are 6 teams working on something within the primary driver of ease of scheduling. There's also 6 teams at the secondary driver level working on a change concept within the scheduling process itself. If you look down here, there's only 2 working on scheduling technology. And then when you get down to the change concept level, you can see how many teams are working on each individual change concept. And for the current team, which is the Andover Adult Specialties, you can see that they've run 18 PDSA cycles, 1 PDSA cycle, and so forth. Okay. So if this was your team in your driver diagram, and you wanted to go in and view your PDSA cycles for a change concept, you could just click on this number here, which will send us into the list of all the PDSA cycles that this team has run within this change concept. So these are the different change ideas. So there's looks like there's about 3 different change ideas within this larger change concept, with each of them having different PDSA cycles. Okay. If you wanted to start a brand new PDSA cycle, you can find and say it's a change that you haven't worked on yet. What you would do is look through the driver diagram and find a change you haven't worked on. So let's say begin an employee of the month program. And when you first look at your driver diagram, obviously there won't be any PDSA cycle, so they'll all have this start the test button. So you can just say start a test. This brings us into the PDSA section we were just looking at, but it's empty. So now we'll plan our first PDSA cycle. We just have to give it a name. So this is sort of the name of the change idea name. So let's say begin 20-month program. So design there, for instance. Once you do that, it brings you into the PDSA form, which looks like a typical PDSA form with all the different sections you would expect, with the plan, the do, the study, and the act sections. So these sections down here are not active because the testing period hasn't been defined. Once that testing period is selected, the bottom part of the form will unlock. So we'll set our objectives. Let's say objective 1, objective 2, objective 3. So none of the fields are required on this form except for the testing period. So depending on how much detail your PDSA cycle is going to have, you can skip certain fields, or come back and fill them out later. And there's no save button, so as you type, it's going to save. So these are our steps that we're taking in the plan. And then these are the questions. And we plan on collecting data. This. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and pick our testing dates. Let's say we want to start testing this next week. It will default to 1 day. You can also just change it. So let's say we want to test this for 5 days. Again, these small tests have changed, so we want them to be pretty quick. And then under observation summary, so once we start the testing, if we see things that we want make notes about. You can say, say day one, saw that dot dot dot. Two, we saw, for instance, okay. Once we're done with the testing phase, we go into the study phase, and we have a couple of options down here. We can copy the questions and related predictions from above, just to kind of give a starting place for when we start writing this narrative. So it just copied the questions 1 through 3, and then I could make edits and additions to this. It also you have the ability to copy the observation summary from above. That way you're not starting from scratch, and then you can author your narrative of what you've learned. And then when you're ready to take the next step, you can document what you're planning on doing. We plan on testing this further, and we can decide whether we're going to adapt this, which based on my next steps, it sounds like what we're going to do. We could abandon it if it's not working out, or we can adopt it. So let's say we've gone through 5 or 6 different PDSA cycles. We're ready to implement this for real. We can just say adopt. So this is our first cycle through, so we're going to adapt. Gives you a chance to make any edits to your notes. Click adapt, and now it brings us back to the PDSA page. When we're ready to start our next PDSA cycle, we can just say start planning our next cycle. If I wanted to go in and view what I documented, I can expand it. This will give you specific information about the PDSA, but not all of it. It's basically just the information that makes sense for a completed PDSA cycle. I can also go in and view all the detail. Okay. If I change my mind, let's say I've tested this and I'm not going to do another PDSA cycle, I can just mark it as done. Okay. I will point out here on the right-hand side, each change idea has its own folder for resources. So if you want to keep any documents, whether it be a patient survey or a photograph of a waiting room or whatever it might be, you can put those directly in here and keep them all in one place. So every time you add a new change idea, you'll get a new folder to put those in. There's also folders here. It doesn't look like there's any documents in these folders, but if project staff wanted to add documents to the driver diagram, whether it be at the primary driver level, the secondary driver level, or at the change concept, those documents would be available right here for you. Okay. All right, so that's the PDSAs. If you wanted to view all of your PDSAs, you could just click on the PDSA section on the left. And again, this is one that's been going on for a while. So there's a bunch of PDSA cycles that this team has run. So you could see in the driver diagram structure, we have all these different change concepts. And on the timeline, you can see all the different PDSA cycles that this team has run. Okay. And you can just click on one and view all the information. Okay, so this makes it easy to kind of see how long different PDSA cycles have been going on and what this team has been working on. So a good way to find out if there's somebody else you might want to collaborate with. So speaking of collaboration, I do want to show you once things start getting added to the site and you start working on different PDSAs, you're probably going to have questions about different ways of implementing things. One way to do that is when you go into your PDSA section, you'll see this button, which will show you how many other teams are working on this change. So if you remember, the driver diagram had a number. This is the same number that you would see. So if you clicked on the number on the driver diagram or this button here, it'll take you to a place that's called the change collaboration space. And this lets you find the other teams that are working on this and then look at their PDSA cycles. A couple of things that you might notice is there's multiple sections. So there's a learning section, which harvests all of the learnings from all the PDSAs from all the other teams, so you can view them in one place. So you could say, oh, I want to see what this team did. It sounds like they did something interesting. Click on the details, see their PDSA, and then you can reach out to them and ask them questions. This is the resources section. So this is if the project staff added documents to the driver diagram. You could find those here. You wouldn't see these drag files here to upload because you wouldn't have permission to add them. I can see them because I'm logged in as a system administrator, that's all. But you would see the documents, and you can just click on those and get direct access to those. The measure section would not appear for your project because your project is set up in such a way that you cannot see each other's team's data. If your project was set up to be transparent, then you would see this, which would show any related measures data for this change concept. And the last section I want to show you is the discussion. So this is the other area you can have discussions with people. This is pretty powerful. So if you're working on, let's say you're working on mapping out the scheduling process, you wanted to reach out to everybody else working on this as well, you could just post something to this discussion group, and then everyone on those teams would get a notification that that question was added. And this is good if you wanted to start working on this change concept, or you're already working on it and you have a very specific question about it. Okay, so this works the same way as the other discussion groups do. Okay. So that's sort of the driver diagram, the PDSAs, as well as the change collaboration space. All right, so let's look at the measures. So we'll take a look at your project again. We'll go into the measures. So it looks like there's five project measures that have been set up. And there's a couple of ways that you can start entering data. You can enter data a measure at a time, which is not really efficient, or you can enter all the measures at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. And what this does is it brings all the measures that have been set up both at the project level as well as any custom measures you've added, which I'll show you how to set those up if you're interested. And all you have to do is select which time period you want to enter data for. And then you would go and enter data for each measure. So this is the numerator, denominator. The percentage would be calculated as soon as you provided both of those values. If you wanted to add a note for this time period for this measure, you could just enter a note there. You may notice there's no save button. As soon as you move off of the fields, it will save it. So you can quickly tab through this screen, entering the data for these measures. And then all you have to do is switch. Which month you're entering the data for. Okay. I do want to point out this little movie camera icon. This means that there's a video available for this. Why is that? No. Oh, there we go. So this is a very task-specific video. It's about 2.5 minutes long, basically describing exactly what I described. Okay. Go back. Let's see. So if you did want to track any data that's not this type of data, let's say you wanted to collect different data still related to the project, but not this specific measure, you could add your own measures. These are called custom measures. So I'll come in here and say add measure, and you can then set up the different measure types that you want. So let's say you wanted to collect data for percentage. I could say my team percent. Say test for the description. You can select the category, outcome, process, balancing, or structural. Let's say process. Optional data collection strategy to describe how you're planning on collecting the data. Next, numerator is say patients with some condition. So total patients. Click next. And then you select how often you're planning on entering the data, whether it's daily, just on the weekdays, weekly, monthly, and then you can also expand it to look at some of the other frequencies here as well. So we'll say monthly. Defaults the y-axis to a percent sign. You can change that if you want, and you can also define your goal in terms of what you want to achieve. We'll click create, and then we're all done. Okay. So I'm not sure if you're going to be asked to enter baseline data for some of these measures. Let's say you're being asked to enter a year of data from before the project started. You don't have to enter that manually. What you can do is import it from a spreadsheet. So if I go in and look at my custom measure here, you can see this is empty. And I could start with just by picking the first time period I want to enter the data for, or I can cut and paste it in here. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. And this works both for the project measures as well as the custom measures. I'm just going to open up a spreadsheet. It's just opening up on this monitor. Okay. So to import data, all you need to do is make sure that you have your data lined up in a similar way to this. So it's for this one, it's a monthly date, and then it has the numerator and then the denominator. So I'm just going to grab some sample data here. So this is my monthly data with a numerator and denominator. I can highlight all of it and say copy. And then all I have to do is paste it. And it will validate it. So it'll make sure that there's only one date per month, that there's a numerator and a denominator, and that they're all numbers. So if that looks correct, we could say looks good. And then it automatically imports the data for you. Okay. If I wanted to enter data manually on the screen, let's say we're ready to enter our January 2023 data, we just click the plus button and we'll say, okay, we can add a note. And once you add a note, you can see this has changed to a diamond just to indicate that there's an annotation there. You can also see that there is something that got triggered on the analysis panel. I can expand that, and it has found a shift in the data. And this is running run chart rules in the background for anyone who's familiar with run charts. This will automatically monitor the data, look for trends, look for shifts, and things like that. If I wanted to download this and put it in a presentation, let's say you're being asked to present your data at one of the monthly calls, you can come over to actions. You could say export chart. This gives you a nice little preview so that you can hide and show things. There's no goal, so there's nothing being shown there. I can hide the annotations or show them. I can also show and hide the run chart signals. And then once I'm ready, I could say export. And it will open it up in a nice high resolution image, which you can then cut and paste into any other document that you would like. Okay. Let's see. There are some reports. I'm going to go into the demo because there's no data. There shouldn't be any data at this point in the project. So I'll go into the reports, and you won't see the small multiples because your project is set up not to show other teams' data. But I will go into the aggregate. So what this allows you to do is actually look at your team compared to the other teams. So if I wanted to plot, if I want to look at the overall, I could just leave this alone and this will show all the teams. I can also change the statistic in the way it's calculating this top statistic. The aggregate takes all the numerators and all the denominators for all the teams and calculates the percentage. The one you'd probably want to look at would be the average. And you can see that it does significantly change shape. You can also say, I just want to show my team compared to all the other teams. So this is a nice way of saying, how are we doing compared to everybody else? We can also switch this to median. Didn't really make a difference. There's not a lot of data here really, because there's only a few teams. And then I can just look at the aggregate as well. Again, so I could toggle between those. And I can also export this. If something's in the way, I can move it. If I didn't like where that was placed by default, I could move it out of the way and then export the chart. And then I could put this into a whatever document I want to put this into. Okay. If you wanted to download all of your data, if you go into the import export section, you can click on team measure data, and this will download a full CSV, which you can then open up in Excel, do further analysis, or just keep it for your records. You can also download all your PDSA details. And then I don't think you're going to be using this feature, but there's also status reports as well. Okay. The last thing I want to show you before we take any questions is I'm going back to your project. I went back to your homepage. Right here in the quick links section, there's something called the team demographics. This is a form that you're going to be asked to fill out. And this basically, you select what region you're in, what urbanization level, is it a teaching hospital, nonprofit, for-profit, is it a safety net, things like that. Okay, and then once you complete that, it will say that it's completed on this homepage. Once you start it, it'll say it's in progress but not completed. Pretty straightforward. Okay, and you can access all the data entry capabilities directly from here as well. If you wanted to view your data, you could directly from here. If you wanted to enter the data for all your measures, you could just click on that to go right to that data entry screen that I showed you. Okay. That is about it for the sort of the structured demo. I can answer any questions if you have them, go back and cover anything that you may have additional questions on or need more detail on. If not, you can also ask the project staff questions after the call. And if they can't answer it, then we'd be glad to get back to you on that.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just going to go ahead and stop the recording, but anyone feel free to go ahead and take yourself off mute if you have